In this section, we will cover data sources for risk management. As we know, the best decisions are driven by or based on data, rather than on instinct, intuition, wish, or fancy. Each of the three major stages of the risk management framework need data about risks, but not the same data. They work best when the data fits the level of abstraction, detail, and time period that the decision needs to relate to. Risk assessment needs to understand persistent, long-term risks and be able to correlate their potential impacts and frequency of occurrence to the organization's strategic, long-term, and tactical, near-term goals and objectives. Time periods tend to be measured in weeks or months, for example. Risk response takes specific types of attacks and chooses controls based on the technical, operational, and other characteristics of the attack as a pattern, given the details of the organization's existing or planned information systems, its technologies, and operational procedures. Time periods may need to look from minutes to hours or days to make practical choices between alternative control strategies. Risk monitoring must be able to sound the alarm when an attack on the organization's information and information systems is suspected to be occurring, or within a very short period of time after such an attack. Time periods can be as small as milliseconds. Clearly, continuous monitoring is the ideal. With today's storage, analytics, and machine learning technologies, it's achievable for most organizations. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the data needs across three stages of risk management: risk assessment, risk responses, and risk monitoring. Risk assessment works at two levels. At the strategic level, it broadly considers the organization, its goals and objectives, and the markets or environments it operates in, and the threats it may face at that level. The organization's strategic and tactical planning efforts should have assembled a rich set of data, which together with those plans helps to identify the critical business processes and assets that must be protected. Typically, these are documented in a Business Impact Assessment, BIA report. At a lower level, risk assessment draws on current business operational data, including security-related data, to identify potential emerging or heretofore overlooked sources of risks. Trending data related to information security risks, either regional or industry-wide in focus, can also feed the risk assessment process. This data tends to be aggregated at monthly or annual levels. We have just talked about risk assessment data sources. Now, let us look at the risk response data sources. Choosing to treat a risk may involve selecting controls to detect the occurrence of a risk event, prevent damage or compromise to information and information systems, alert security personnel to the event, and facilitate taking corrective actions. Decisions about risk treatment may require in-depth knowledge of both the systems being protected and the types of attacks that might occur. Some of this data is available from published sources of common vulnerabilities and exploits, CVE data, while other data will come from the organization's own system. In some cases, selecting the right controls may require detailed simulation of different control approaches and attack scenarios, which might include ethical penetration testing. These can generate megabytes to gigabytes of data, which will need analytic processing to support making informed decisions. CVE data will often refer to the CVSS score for a given vulnerability. The Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS, is an open framework published by First.org, which is a US-based nonprofit organization. It provides a way to assess different aspects of software vulnerabilities, as well as estimating how that vulnerability may increase or decrease with respect to time or other environmental factors. Various CVSS calculators are available online to use as part of risk identification and assessment, as well as other resources to help you interpret a published CVSS score. NIST provides a variety of these and other useful information about putting CVSS to work. We'll look at it more in Chapter 4. Finally, let's examine risk monitoring data sources. Monitoring is the activity that alerts operations and security personnel that an attack is imminent, ongoing, or just recently occurred. Driven by data analytics techniques, monitoring systems can draw real-time data from a variety of sources across the enterprise, including systems and applications logs on servers and endpoints, network infrastructure devices, managed security services systems, cloud and ISP service providers or other third-party service providers, access control systems, network traffic monitoring system, and user and entity behavior analytics, UEBA systems. Much of this data comes in bursts of streams as activities across the enterprise ebb and flow through the cycles of business operations across the day. Monitoring systems need to be able to receive and manage such streams of data, correlate it in time, and make it useful for analytics and alert purposes. Monitoring is not the same as trending. Before the term analytics became commonplace, organizations would often use trending as a way of understanding what their data was trying to tell them. An online retailer, for example, may process tens of thousands of transactions per day. Yet the millions of data items generated per day can't help the retailer know whether their systems are big enough, fast enough, or secure enough. Measuring how that volume changes across the week or year may suggest clues to how their markets are changing or whether a new product is being welcomed or ignored by customers. The retailer cannot, however, detect fraudulent transactions by means of trending. It cannot detect when an insider at the bank has colluded with an attacker, wittingly or unwittingly, to set up a ghost vendor who submits false invoices to the retailer for payment. Security analytics looks at all of the data and can use a variety of techniques to identify a set of items that may be suspicious, such as a handful of transactions. Similarly, intrusion detection cannot work effectively if all it does is monitor trends, such as the number of attempted logons that fell on a daily rate. Events that may be suspicious are detected by correlating dozens, perhaps hundreds, of log entries or surveillance and security sensor readings, and flagging for further analysis those that don't fit the patterns of acceptable events. This is finding the devil in the details. We have just gone through data sources for risk management. Please answer the following questions.